He advised me, the detectives were on the phone. Your warrant is for, I believe, a sexual battery warrant. Well, you said you were a teacher.
Well, you said you were a teacher, so good thing it's summertime at least, so it gives you some time to figure this out. A Marine veteran turned middle school teacher, a trusted mentor, a man who helped shape young minds. And now he sits in the back of a squad car charged with sexually abusing a child. Before we go deeper into what the documents actually show, make sure you're subscribed to AA Dark Files, because we don't just cover the story, we follow the evidence. This is a story of a decade of betrayal, of trust weaponized, and of a system that may have looked the other way. This is the case of Brian Pawelczuk.
So good thing it's summertime at least, so it gives you some time to figure this out.
A Marine veteran turned middle school teacher finds himself out of the classroom and in the back of a squad car, charged with sexually abusing a child.
I'm trying to link like anything that's happened in the last, I don't know, years.
Yeah, this could be from yesterday, last week, last month, last year. I don't know. That information I don't have. You'd probably know more than I would.
A Marine veteran turned middle school teacher finds himself out of the classroom and in the back of a squad car charged with sexually abusing a child. I'm trying to link like anything that's happened the last, I don't know, years. And yeah, this could be from yesterday, last week, last month, last year. I don't know. That information I don't have. You'd probably know more than I would. On paper, Brian Pawelczuk was the kind of person any community would trust with their children. He served 5 years as an infantry rifleman in the U.S. Marine Corps, with deployments to Iraq, Bahrain, and Guantanamo Bay. After a physical injury ended his military career, he earned a teaching degree and spent 13 years in the classroom. Most recently, he was a 7th grade civics teacher at Punta Gorda Middle School in Florida. He sponsored the National Junior Honors Society, coached flag football and soccer, and even served as a Young Marines instructor. He was a pillar, and that, as we will see, was exactly the point.
We have the report directly from police detailing how a once respected community figure is now coming face to face with horrific allegations of betrayal, threats of violence, and manipulation. And law enforcement are now confronted with another crucial question. Are there more victims out there? We're on the case presented by Law and Crime. I'm Chris.
We have the report directly from police detailing how a once respected community figure is now coming face to face with horrific allegations of betrayal, threats of violence, and manipulation. And law enforcement are now confronted with another crucial question. Are there more victims out there? The case began on July 1st when a male victim reported to the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office that he was sexually abused on multiple occasions starting around 2017 by Brian Pawelczuk, who would have been between 29 and 31 years old. The victim was introduced to Pawelczuk through a mutual friend who served with him in the Marine Corps. They became close family friends. Pawelczuk eventually moved in with the victim's family, and that is when the nightmare began. The victim described a dynamic that started with normalized behavior. He trusted Pawelczuk completely, but when the alleged abuse began, it followed a classic pattern of exploitation. The victim says Pawelczuk attempted anal sex on him but was unsuccessful. When asked about it by the detective, the victim confirmed that partial penetration did occur and that Pawelczuk had explained it away by saying he was just a kid. Trust is the currency of abuse. And this man was rich.
Stewart. On paper, 40-year-old Brian Pawelczuk has a very honorable track record of serving for the greater good. He was an infantry rifleman in the U.S. Marine Corps for 5 years, serving on the front lines in Iraq, along with deployments to places like Bahrain and Guantanamo Bay in Cuba. Now, at the time, he had plans to re-enlist, but his physical injuries stopped him from being able to do so. And that's when Pavlicek decided to pursue a teaching degree at Florida Atlantic University. That's part of his transition back into the civilian world. Pavlicek would go on to be an educator for the next 13 years. His most recent role was a 7th grade civics teacher at Punta Gorda Middle School in Florida. He was also involved in helping Florida's young generation in other ways, like being a sponsor for the National Junior Honor Society and the Fishing Club, a former flag football and soccer coach at Englewood Sky Academy, along with using his military background as a young Marines instructor with the Imagine Upper Campus School for students from.
He advised me the detectives were on the phone. Your warrant is for, I believe, a sexual battery warrant. Well, you said you were a teacher, so good thing it's summertime at least, so it gives you some time to figure this out. The victim said the abuse went on for about a year and a half. It became normalized, but eventually he wanted it to stop. He distanced himself from Pavlicek. That's when the manipulation turned into something even more terrifying. The victim said Pavlicek confronted him and said, "Why don't you love me anymore?" He became upset. And then in a dark final act, Pavlicek allegedly emerged from his bedroom, handed the victim a handgun and said, "If you don't bleeping love me anymore, just bleeping kill me." The victim called his mother. She called law enforcement. A 2017 police report corroborates this exact confrontation. Deputies responded to a disturbance and spoke to Pavlicek, who said he was frustrated and fed up. A family friend told deputies he told Pavlicek to move out because he did not like him. That's when Pavlicek pulled out a handgun and said, "If you hate me so much, why don't you bleeping kill me?" This was the moment the police could have uncovered what was really going on. Instead, Pavlicek was simply removed from the residence. And the abuse, as we now know, was far from over.
8th grade through high school. When you look at all of this, Pavlicek appeared to have a passion for helping young people become the best version of themselves. But behind the scenes, according to these allegations, a completely different and horrific story was allegedly unfolding, including a decade of sexual misconduct against multiple different minors, ones that reportedly trusted him as either family or their mentor. So now you might be wondering, where did this all go wrong? We're going to go through the disturbing details from the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office step by step, leading to the moments caught on police body cam where Pavlicek ended up in the back of a squad car headed to the police station. And later on, we'll also talk to an attorney straight out of Florida about all the details related to this investigation. So let's get into it. This case begins, at least for law enforcement, on July 1st. When a male victim reported to the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office, that he was sexually abused as a child on multiple occasions, and this is all around 2017, by Brian Pavlicek, who would have been at the time between 29 and...
Now, according to the police report, the lead detective searched the sheriff's office database for prior cases involving Pavlicek, and they did find one stemming from 2017. It appears to describe the same confrontation. Quote, "On January 10th, 2017, deputies responded to a residence for a disturbance and spoke to Brian, 30 years old at the time of the report, who stated that he was, quote, frustrated and fed up, but he wouldn't elaborate on what that meant. The investigation revealed even more disturbing details. The lead detective found another report from the Northport Police Department involving Pavlicek's time as a young Marines instructor. This report allegedly documented inappropriate physical contact on multiple boys, ages 13 to 15. He accused of inappropriately touching the genitals of male boys as part of a game called nut tapping, making them feel uncomfortable. There was no record of an arrest at that time, but there is more. On July 21st, the detective conducted a controlled call between the victim and Pavlicek. The victim, pretending to worry about joining the Marine Corps, asked about polygraph tests and whether they would ask about past relationships. He even brought up the abuse directly, saying, I know I told you I did not like what was going on. You know what I'm talking about. Pavlichuk's response was chillingly evasive. He reassured the victim that they wouldn't look into any of that unless the victim brought it up. He said, "They're not going to say, 'Hey, whatever,' unless you bring it up, dude." And when the victim asked if he should be worried because they frown upon like dude on dude relationships, Pavlichuk replied, "That's the Marine Corps, and I'll tell you right now, they are the most homoerotic place I've ever been." He did not deny it.
31 years old. You fast forward to July 10th, and a detective brings the male victim in for an interview. And the victim states that Brian Pavlichuk was introduced to him through a person who served with Pavlichuk in the Marine Corps, and eventually they become close family friends. The victim told police the first inappropriate incident occurred when Pavlichuk was visiting his family during summer break, and he observed a redacted party sitting naked on Pavlichuk's lap while playing a computer game. Now, while the report does not reveal who or how old the person was who was sitting on Pavlichuk's lap, it appears to be a male victim who was a minor. Now, eventually, the male victim said that Pavlichuk moved to Sarasota County and he began living with his family. And this is where the alleged sexual abuse begins. Quote, "The victim described the first sexual abuse incident occurring at this house in the bathroom adjacent to a bedroom. The victim stated Brian asked him to accompany Brian into the bathroom and instructed him to remove his clothing," end quote. Now, the rest of this portion of the affidavit, it is too graphic to read word for word, but the victim goes on to tell the detective that Pavlichuk allegedly attempted to perform anal sex on him, but it was unsuccessful, with Pavlichuk explaining he was, quote, "just a kid." The detective,
Brian replied, quote, "And this is key. So here's the thing is, I wouldn't worry about it. They're not going to polygraph you." The victim stated, I know I told you I did not like what was going on. You know what I'm talking about." Brian responded, "So the thing is, they're not going to look into any of that, and they're not going to say, 'Hey, whatever,' unless you bring it up, dude. Does that make sense?" The day after the controlled call, detectives interviewed the family friends who had allowed Pavlichuk to live with them. They confirmed he was often alone with the boys, offered to watch them, and took them places. They referred to him as a male nanny. They observed him tickling and cuddling the boys, even holding one of their hands while they slept. They thought it was odd, but brushed it off because he was a trusted teacher and a Marine. They now realize he was grooming their children. He gained their trust to get access. Trust is the currency of abuse, and this man was rich. By July 24th, Sarasota County Sheriff's Office, with assistance from the U.S. Marshals Task Force, took Pavlichuk into custody at his residence. He was charged with 1 count of sexual battery by a familial or custodial person on a victim under 12, and 1 count of lewd and lascivious molestation under the same circumstances. He faces up to life in prison if convicted.
asked if Pavlichuk ever put his private parts on the victim's behind, and he reportedly said yes, and that partial penetration did occur. Again, these are very difficult allegations to talk about, and these allegations, they're difficult to hear, but according to the victim, sadly, this was just the beginning. He told the detective that Pavlichuk's sexual abuse occurred on multiple occasions for approximately a year and a half, also taking place at a separate address that Pavlichuk lived at. Now, there are several examples of sexual abuse.
The victim stated that he has not seen or spoken to Brian since that incident. The lead detective searched the sheriff's office database for prior cases involving Pavlichuk, and they did find one stemming from 2017. It appears to describe the same confrontation. During the traffic stop, the deputy's body camera captured a surreal conversation. Pavlichuk, dazed and processing, repeatedly asked about the charges and how public the arrest would be. He told the deputy he was just trying to process everything. At one point, the deputy, trying to lighten the mood, said, "Well, you said you were a teacher, so good thing it's summertime at least." Pavlichuk even asked the deputy why the marshals were involved, speculating it might be because of his military background. The deputy just told him, "I don't know if it has to do with your ex-military background. Maybe they thought they needed somebody more hands-on." Pavlichuk tried to play the victim. He said it was hard to bring your guys today. He even gave a compliment to the deputy, calling him a working man.
That law enforcement are alleging in this case. And again, these are very disturbing allegations. And along the way, multiple occasions of alleged sexual abuse, this victim describes their dynamic taking a dark turn. Quote, the victim said the abuse became normalized and he initially trusted Brian completely, viewing him as a friend. The victim stated that when he realized that he wanted the sexual activity to stop, he distanced himself from Brian. The victim stated Brian tried to talk to him, but he ignored him. The victim stated Brian asked him, quote, why don't you love me anymore? And became upset at the rejection. The victim described a confrontation with Brian that resulted in the end of the sexual abuse. The victim stated that he was eating dinner at a table when Brian emerged from his bedroom and said, quote, if you don't bleeping love me anymore, then just bleeping kill me, and handed him a handgun. The victim stated he called his mom, who then called law enforcement. The victim stated that he has not seen or spoken to Brian since that incident. Guys, real quick before we get more into this,
Well, you said you were a teacher, so good thing it's summertime at least. So it gives you some time to figure this out. No, that's soon. Yeah, I'm trying to get you to the jail so you can get it all figured out as quick as you can. How public is all this? 'Cause, well, anything is a public record, but someone has to go search it. The idea that a man could spend years inside a school teaching children about civics and citizenship while allegedly committing these crimes is a chilling thought. He was supposed to be a mentor, a role model, someone who taught the next generation about how to be a good member of society. Instead, he was allegedly weaponizing that trust to commit unspeakable acts. And the question that hangs over the entire case is this: how many more are there? The sheriff's office is urging anyone with additional information to contact them. The investigation remains ongoing.
Most of us don't think about healthcare until something changes. Maybe it's a move, new job, health scare, and suddenly you're looking for doctors, comparing insurance plans, and trying to make the best decisions for yourself and your family. This is where our sponsor ZocDoc comes in. Now, if you're like me, you're probably good at putting things off, especially making doctor's appointments. But with ZocDoc's free app and website, you can search and compare local in-network doctors, and you're able to check that off your to-do list even faster. And you can read patient reviews, detailed doctor profiles. You can get a sense of the doctor before you even make the appointment. And you're also able to make the appointment usually within 24 to 72 hours. You can also do it same day in a lot of cases, which is great. Your health matters, and taking care of yourself shouldn't be complicated. Find and book the right doctor with ZocDoc. Head to ZocDoc.com/Chris to get started and check that appointment off your to-do list. That is ZocDoc, ZocDoc.com/Chris. Now, according to the police report, the lead detective searched the sheriff's office database for prior cases involving Pavlichuk, and they did find one stemming from 2017. It appears to describe the same confrontation. Quote, on January 10th, 2017, deputies responded to a residence for a disturbance and spoke to Brian, 30 years old.
And you have this law enforcement event that happened at some point when he was living with the family, and it led to him no longer living with this family, according to police, where according to the victim, Pavlichuk says something allegedly along the lines of, if you don't love me anymore, kill me. And he apparently brings like a gun into the room. Police end up being called, and it's interesting in the police report because the line changes that is told to police, and it was something along the lines of, if you hate me so much, kill me, which is very different from, I feel like if it was, if you don't love me anymore, kill me. And if that's actually what was said, but police aren't told that, let's just say they were, and it feels like that could have opened the door to an investigation about something that was going on. But the way that the story appears to have been changed, at least from police's perspective, this case is a study in betrayal. A man who was supposed to represent the best of our society, a Marine, a teacher, was allegedly one of its worst predators. He used his status to embed himself in a family, gain their trust, and then systematically abuse a child. And when the child tried to pull away, He threatened him with a gun. Pavlochuk remains in the Sarasota County Jail without bond. The Charlotte County Public Schools released a statement saying they are deeply troubled and that the individual has been placed on administrative leave. But at what point does deeply troubled become a demand for accountability? What did the school know and when did they know it? Trust is the currency of abuse. And this man was rich.
At the time of the report, who stated that he was, quote, frustrated and fed up, but he wouldn't elaborate on what that meant. Brian admitted getting into a dispute because his family friend told Brian that he, quote, will have to move out. Deputies spoke to the family friend who said that he told Brian that he had to move out and that he, quote, did not like him. Person reported Brian then retrieved a handgun and tried giving it to him and said, if you hate me so much, why don't you bleeping kill me? And this resulted in Brian being removed.
I want to go into some of the allegations here, and we don't specifically know the age because it's redacted, at least in the police report we have of the victim. But the charge that this teacher, Brian Pavlochuk's facing is sexual abuse of a victim under the age of 12. And so we know that this victim was incredibly young when this sex abuse allegedly happened. We will continue to follow this case. But for now, we are left with a horrifying picture of a man who used his service record and his teaching credentials as a mask. He wore the uniform of a Marine and the title of a teacher, but underneath, he was allegedly a predator. The question is, what are the institutions that failed to stop him going to do about it? If you have information about this case, contact the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office. And if you have any information about how someone like Brian Pavlochuk could stay in a classroom for so long, we want to hear from you. Now, for the document we want you to look at, pull up the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office arrest report for Brian Pavlochuk. Read the controlled call transcript for yourself. And ask yourself this: if you were a detective on this case in 2017, would you have left that house without asking more questions? Let us know in the comments. And if you found this analysis valuable, make sure to like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for AA Dark Files. We don't just cover the story, we follow the evidence.